Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this momentous occasion, the virtual launch of the JS 359 2022 Jamaica Standard Specification for Telemedicine, promulgated by the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. My name is Richard Lawrence. I'm manager for the Testing and Industrial Services branch here at the BSJ, and I will be your moderator for this landmark occasion. Today we are celebrating under the theme, Standards Revolutionizing Patient Care Through Telemedicine. But before we continue, I'd like for a few housekeeping matters. First of all, we apologize for the late start due to a technical issue that we need to sort out for our country so that Jamaica can really enjoy the benefits of the standard. Housekeeping. We're going to ask persons to keep their mic muted unless you are presenting or you're asking a question. Also, if you desire to keep your video on, just ensure that the background is okay and we don't get any surprises that you don't want to share with us. Designated speakers, we're going to kindly ask you to share your video when you are speaking so that we have the best effect for the presentations. We won't have any speaking out of turn, so we're taking that off the rules. Questions will be accommodated at the appropriate time. There are at least 2 sections for question and answers. We're going to ask you to put your questions in the chat. And at the question and answer section, we will identify persons when they use the raise hand feature. The chat room will be monitored by our manager for the standards branch, Mrs. Karen Watson-Brown. So you can feel free to share your views, your comments, your questions in the chat. And at the appropriate time, we'll be reading them and we'll be addressing all of them. Did I say all? Yes, all of them will be addressed. When you're asking a question, at that time, please state your name. If you're located outside of Jamaica, just say where you are from and then ask your question. We are happy and proud to be sharing this moment with persons in Jamaica, the diaspora, all over the world. We thank our partners, Business Access TV, on Flow Channel 145 or 185. It's also on Digital Play Channel 25 and Ready TV Channel 103. So if you have persons who are not able to come onto Zoom, send them over to this channel or go to the Bureau of Standards YouTube channel. We also want to say thanks to our media partner, Nationwide Network. They will be carrying interview during the course of the morning into afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'd like to listen quietly to the playing of the national anthem of Jamaica.
Eternal Father, bless our land. Guard us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Be our light through countless hours. To our leaders, great defender, grants true wisdom from above. Justice respect for all. Stir response to duty's call. Strengthen us, the weak to cherish. Give us vision, lest we perish. Knowledge, send us, Heavenly Father. Grant true wisdom from above. Justice, truth be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love.
Amen. The national anthem of Jamaica is a prayer for our country. And what we're doing today is moving Jamaica Land We Love forward. To bring opening remarks and welcome at this time, I invite the Executive Director of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, Dr. Belton Gooden.
Mr. Richard Lawrence, our moderator for today, Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State, Minister of Industry, Investment, and Commerce, Mr. Wilfred Bagaloo, Chairman, Standards Council, Bureau of Standards Jamaica, Professor Winston Davidson, Chairman, Medical Facilities Technical Committee, Dr. Kenneth Vaughan, who serves as Chairman, Medical Council of Jamaica, Dr. Clover Mattox, Chairman, Jamaica Veterinary Board, Dr. Leela McWhinney Duhaney, Chairman, Nursing Council of Jamaica, Dr. Irving McKenzie, Chief Dental Officer of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Sonia Richards Malcolm, Council of Profession Allied to Medicine, UTEC, Dr. Eugene Brown Myrie, Registrar, Pharmacy Council of Jamaica, Professor Jennifer Knight Mudd, Lecturer, University of the West Indies, Ambassador Dr. Neil Parson, Technical Secretary, Telemedicine Subcommittee, other presenters, officers of the BSJ, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. As the Executive Director here at the BSJ, as well as an avid supporter of local and internationally innovative accomplishments, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you and to thank you for joining us to share in this another standards launch event. Today, we bring focus to telemedicine with the launch of the JS 359 Jamaica Standard Specification for Telemedicine. Telemedicine is the utilization of information or communication technologies to get clinical services from a doctor. The goal of telemedicine is to deliver care and hopefully improve health outcomes. To put it another way, telemedicine is the use of technology to substitute a traditional in-office visit and facilitate long-distance patient care involving clinical contact, advice, monitoring, etc. The management of our health is such an important part of our lives, something that all of us listening today can attest to. As we pursue our various obligations and ambitions, it is becoming increasingly important that we keep our health in check. However, what transpires when we are unable to physically meet with our doctors And during the earlier part of the COVID pandemic, many of us had such a challenge. So then erasing the barrier of physical distance is truly revolutionary. Welcome to the world of telemedicine. Standards development forms a part of the BSJ core function and the national quality infrastructure of Jamaica, for which the BSJ is a key pillar. There is a standard for everything. Needless to say that there is definitely a standard for telemedicine, and some may ask the question, why a standard for telemedicine? What is the importance of standards? Well, standards ensure the safety, the quality, and reliability of products and services. They facilitate trade and protect our health and the health of our environment. This groundbreaking standard will provide the framework through which telemedicine may be safely practiced while upholding the integrity of the medical profession and taking into account the importance of protecting patients' information. I wish to acknowledge at this time the telemedicine subcommittee under the supervision of the Medical Facilities Technical Committee for the inclusion of our valued stakeholders in the development of the JS 359 Jamaica Standard Specification for telemedicine, and for their hard work and sheer determination, I should add, in ensuring that this standard was completed and also add in a relatively short time. Today, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica is proud to launch the JS 359 2022 Jamaican Standard Specification for telemedicine. The support observed here from our Minister of State, the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, as well as our chairman of the BSJ Standards Committee, our council, Mr. Wilfred Bagaloo, truly sends a clear message of support to the industry that our organization is fully committed to standardizing the processes and practices in our healthcare system. This is indeed a significant occasion, and the BSJ is thankful to you all for joining us today on such a special occasion. Our wish for you is to continue to enjoy the rest of the event and the proceedings and to have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gooden, for the standards development process to go to completion. After the technical committee have done their work, there is an approval process that goes through the executive director's office and then to the Standards Council. Right now, I'd like to invite the chairman of the Standards Council, Mr. Wilfred Bagaloo, to bring remarks.
Morning all, and thanks, Richard. And I hope it's not too late to say Happy New Year as well, although January went so fast. Also, I would like to acknowledge Minister Dunn. I think the new ministry is now called the Ministry of Business. It was called Ministry of Industry and Commerce before, and all the other dignitaries and persons who contributed so much to the creation of the standard that Mr. Gooden earlier referred to. First of all, I would like to thank collectively all the persons in this room who are driving the digital economy of Jamaica, and I think we're headed in the right way. And as innovation and creation comes from the private sector, in this regard, we have a responsibility at the Bureau to make sure that we put standards in place and recommend standards. And the purpose of these standards is to ensure that we balance economics with utility. And what do I mean by that? Economics in terms of the people can make their profits, but a utility in the context that the user of the service is getting what has been promised and at a standard. I'm very pleased to see at the pace that we were able to develop the standard and implement it. And congratulations to all. In general, the BSJ will be seeking a very strong heavy, deliberate mandate this year for more standards. Some we hope will become compulsory. I gather this one it's not compulsory, and we'll be doing so through our ministry. Finally, I would like to thank the team at the BSJ. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some very good technical scientists, technical people working at BSJ. I don't think many of us recognize their skills and the work that they put in to get these things done on a timely basis. And on your behalf, I would like to say thank you to them. And I wish the remaining conference launch a success, and I will be able here still be joining to listen to questions and answers with the hope that we can address them at the council if needed. Thank you very much. Richard, back to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The process continues past our Standards Council, and it includes the endorsement of the ministry. Right now, I'd like to make welcome our State Minister in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, now rebranded the Business Ministry, who will be bringing remarks on behalf of the Minister, the Honorable Senator Aubin Hill, who unfortunately is not able to join us. Let me tell you about the State Minister. Dr. the Honorable Norman Dunn, MP, is Minister of State in the Ministry of Investment, Industry and Commerce, a position he has held since September 2020. He is in his second consecutive term as Member of Parliament and Minister of State. Dr. Dunn continues to leverage his experience, technical skills, and competencies to advance national development. A son of the wonderful parish of St. Mary, Dr. Dunn was born in Another Bay and later moved to St. Catherine. We obtained a secondary education at the awesome Dintil Technical High School. He then enrolled at the University of Technology, where he earned a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree, later a Bachelor of Science degree in Management, Economics, and Accounting from the rival university, University of the West Indies, Mona, and a Master's of Degree in International Business and a Doctor of Pharmacy degree. A pharmacist by profession, so he understands the telemedicine arena. With over 25 years experience, he's the proud owner of several pharmacies across Jamaica. He also served as president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Jamaica, vice president of the Jamaica Association of Private Pharmacy Owners, and first vice president of the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists. His strong business skills and political successes are attributable to much of his early upbringing, where he quickly learned to manage resources and to interface with persons of diverse backgrounds. Please help me to welcome State Minister Dr. Norman Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremony, Richard. And just from your introduction, I can see if I were to take a guess, that you're from St. Mary, because yes, the awesome parish of St. Mary. Mr. Wilfred Bagaloo, Chairman, Standard Council, Dr. Velton Gooden, Executive Director, BSJ, Professor Winston Davison, Chairperson, Medical Facilities Technical Committee, Dr. Irvin McKenzie, Chief Dental Officer, Ministry of Health and Wellness, Sonia Richards Malcolm, Counselor Profession Allied to Medicine, UTEC, Dr. Clover Mattox, Chairman, Jamaica Veterinary Board, Dr. Leela Whitney Dehaney, Chairman, Nursing Council of Jamaica, Dr. Kenneth Vaughan, Chairman, Medical Council of Jamaica, my own Dr. Eugenie Brown-Myrie, Chairman of the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica, Professor Jennifer Madden, Professor of Pediatrics and Pulmonary and Clinical Research at the University of the West Indies, Ambassador Neil Pearson, Technical Secretary, other members of the BSJ team, directors, board members, etc., medical personnel, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So I'm pleased to be invited to share with the Bureau of Standards of Jamaica and your stakeholders today at the organization launch of this Jamaica Standard Specification for Telemedicine. The organization, particularly its Standard Development Branch, and the team of technical committee members continues to be responsive to the changing times and to specific areas of concern in the society by leading in the development, review, adoption, and adaptation of standards. I commend the team for its effort and encourage you to remain alert to trends across the world that will help to advance Jamaica's preparedness to be a major global participant. The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, now also known as the Business Ministry, welcomes these standards particularly, not only because of the far-reaching positive outlook for healthcare and delivery, as well as administration, but because it provides yet another opportunity for an injection of investment from forward-thinking medical personnel and investors. Investors seeking to support Jamaica's economic growth and development can now consider how they can work alongside each other to tap into this innovative entrepreneurial minds to help this become the norm. Your recognition that digitization is critical for Jamaica's accelerated growth and development is evident with your team undertaking the development of this particular standard. Digitization will help Jamaica to grow its economy. Just this week, I had the privilege of sharing with the Caribbean Spectrum Management Task Force in Montego Bay as they met to contemplate harmonizing national frequencies allocation and band plans, including more common frequencies and international protocol for disaster management and emergency communications. In that space, I reiterated the government's commitment to transform the island into a digital society and underscore that as a part of the transformation, no one should be left behind. For persons to be left behind in that context of internet technology would be to limit their access through telemedicine. The digital transformation becomes necessary and even more relevant if these standards in support of telemedicine is to be more than mere words on a paper housed at BSJ. Our experience in COVID-19 and even the emergence of mpox has forcibly brought home the importance of telemedicine in supporting healthcare in Jamaica. As our healthcare practitioners navigate these contagious illnesses, we were encouraged to quite simply just call ahead, and if necessary, not come in an effort to avoid exposure to others. We know that telemedicine is more than a mere call, but in Jamaica currently, we're utilizing telephone, video, and internet-based protocol delivering web chat, apps, and web portal in support of telemedicine. We have become more aware of the digital tools in improving the efficiency and outcome of healthcare delivery systems. Data from the United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention for 2021 indicate that 37% of the adults uses telemedicine over a 12-month period, and that telemedicine use increases with age and higher amongst women, 42%, than men, 31.7%. The data also show that the percentage of adults who utilize telemedicine increases with education level and varied by family income. This data in part suggests that for telemedicine to be viable and widely used, our efforts at increasing education levels and increasing economic independence among Jamaicans will be critical. Contemplate for a moment how healthcare for the aged and the infirmed can be enhanced without creating discomfort, removing them from their beds to wheelchairs, to transportation, for them to have access to medical attention. So many in rural areas, like my area in Southeast St. Mary, stands to benefit, but only if the digital infrastructure exists proportionately across Jamaica and medical providers broaden their scope of operation. Admittedly, these are early days. The standards have been developed to create the foundation and the framework in which to operate. This is only one aspect of the work. This must now be supported by other relevant stakeholders across disciplines to ensure the practicability of voluntary implementation by medical care providers. Today's session will allow for interaction and endorsement from several key organizations involved in health: the Medical Council of Jamaica, the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica, the Nursing Council of Jamaica, amongst others. And I look forward to the exchange of thoughts and for these expressions to help inform the BSJ and the ministry, along with all the stakeholders, on how to move forward. Let me again, on behalf of my minister and the team here at the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Jamaica's Business Ministry, sincere appreciation to all the technical members and facilitators for the committed effort they've brought to this standard, this virtual launch today. Thank you for the work that you continue to do. The call now is for others to move and to proceed forward. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish you a very successful day. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Minister. In 2020, we were introduced to that term, well, some of us, the new norm, and I heard the minister speak about it. The digital transformation is a part of this new norm. I'm going to welcome one of my awesome colleagues who is a part of this transformation, who's going to be speaking of the services that are offered here at the Bureau Standard as we are going through a transformation ourselves. I want to remind you that you can access the launch on Business Access TV channel 145, 185, Digiplay channel 25, and also you can use our Bureau Standards YouTube channel to be a participant if you're having issues on the Zoom. So we welcome all those channels. Mr. Shane Slater is a Standards Development Officer in the Standards Development Branch of the Bureau Standards Jamaica. He has a background in environmental management, having obtained a master's degree in environmental management from the University of Cape Town and a bachelor's degree in environmental studies from Franklin and Marshall College. He currently facilitates many committees, including the BSJ's Bamboo, Building Code, Biodegradable Plastics, and Building and Associated Materials National Technical Committees. He also facilitates the National Mirror Committees for Circular Economy and Blockchain Technology. He represents Jamaica on the Technical Management Committee and Editorial Committee of the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality CARICOM. I also want to say welcome to our members of CARICOM who are part of this launch today. Thanks for being here. You are encouraged to put in the chat any questions or comments that you have. We will accommodate the question and answers later on in the launch. I want, as Mr. Slater speaks, for you to just type in the chat anything new that you hear from his presentation that you didn't know that the Bureau Standard does. So handing over to Mr. Slater to present the services of the BSJ.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Is everyone hearing me? Okay, great. I'll proceed to share my presentation. Okay, good morning again. So I'll be speaking to what we do here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, as well as the range of services that we provide. So the Bureau of Standards Jamaica operates under the framework of the National Quality Infrastructure of Jamaica. And this falls under 4 pillars, and this includes the standards development, conformity assessment, and metrology, which falls under the purview of the BSJ, as well as accreditation, which is provided by the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, JANAC. And we also work with the NCRA, which manages the enforcement and regulatory aspects of this quality infrastructure. So at the BSJ, we seek to provide value to our customers by supporting business development and trade, and helping you to ensure quality assurance and engaging our customers to meet their needs. So as you would know, we have separated our regulatory arm of our functions at the BSJ to that has separated and gone to the NCRA. And now we want you to see us as a facilitator that provides high quality services and world-class facilities to address your needs and enable you to provide quality products and services and ensure business success. So these are the benefits that we hope that you will receive when you collaborate with us and seek out our services. We want to ensure that we're meeting your demands and expectations. We're providing value, building trust, and that we are competitive and we're able to increase the scale and experience growth in your businesses. So as our name suggests, we are all about standards. And what is a standard? A standard is an established way of doing something. So essentially the best practices for whatever product or service that we are speaking to. So standards can include requirements, specifications, guidelines, or characteristics, and they're applicable to goods, services, and systems. And standards, of course, ensure quality, and they protect health and safety. So in general, these are these overarching services we provide. So standardization is at the core of what we do here. And tied to that is our metrology, training, and conformity assessment, which also includes testing, calibration, and certification through the National Certification Body of Jamaica. In terms of laboratory services, we offer over 200 services in various categories, including chemical and microbiological, nutritional, packaging, material testing, label assessments, and product testings for a wide variety of products, as well as calibration and measurement services. So within these laboratory services, we have some metrology services that are specifically applicable to medical devices to support the telemedicine standard. So for example, we do calibration for mass. So that would be your scales and balances, pressure, volume, and temperature. In terms of our non-lab services, we do provide training through our Quality Institute, and these are internationally certified training courses as well as local training courses. And in terms of how we deliver this training, you can do them online virtually, or you may come to the Quality Institute, or we can come to you and provide the services at your facility. We also provide certification through the National Certification Body of Jamaica, which is able to certify your management systems that you put in place. For non-laboratory services, we also facilitate the research and sale of standards, and we provide that through our Technical Information Center, also known as our library. And in the standards development branch, we oversee the entire standards development process, which would have resulted in the standard that we are discussing today. We also have a client services program and various other support programs for various industries, such as Bamboo, the Food Safety and Modernization Secretariat, and we also are the inquiry point for the WTO, which allows you to find out what the market access requirements are for when you are interested in doing export of your products. In terms of standards and training specifically for telemedicine, so of course, today we are discussing the JS 359 Jamaican Standard Specification for Telemedicine, which is available at a cost of $3,380.50 GMD. And I'm sure by the end of today's session, you will see that that standard is very, very much worth the cost. And to support the implementation of that standard, we provide training in ISO 9001, which you may know is the major standard for quality management systems. We provide 3 modules to understand, interpret, to guide your documentation, and the internal auditing aspect of 9001. We also provide training for occupational health and safety. That would be the ISO 45001 standard, as well as risk management, the ISO 31000 standard. And that is a quick overview of the services we provide. If you would like further information, you may email us on the email address that you see on the screen, and you can find us at 6 Winchester Road, and you may call us or visit our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shane. That is an overview of the numerous services we have at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. There are many more that Shane didn't present in his very short time, but chances are we have a service that you can utilize whether you're in Jamaica or anywhere in the world. The next presenter from the Bureau of Standards is Mrs. Cecilia Johnson-Rowe. Cecilia is a Senior Standards Development Officer at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica with over 6 years of experience facilitating the development of national and international standards. She has facilitated technical committees covering the development of standards in areas such as petroleum, tourism, and cannabis, just to name a few. Cecilia is a proud graduate of the University of the West Indies, Mona, where she pursued a Bachelor of Science in Applied Science and holds a Master's of Business Administration in International Business with distinction from the Mona School of Business and Management. She has a keen interest in international trade relations and endeavors to one day represent Jamaica at the World Trade Organization. So she's in the right place. Mrs. Johnson-Rowe is passionate about contributing to the global competitiveness of small island developing states, such as her home country, Jamaica. She is the wife of Horace and mother of the beautiful, almost 5 months old Elizabeth. She enjoys traveling to experience new cultures, architecture, and food. Please help me welcome Mrs. Cecilia Johnson-Rowe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lawrence. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for the launch of the JS 359 2022 Jamaican Standard Specification for Telemedicine. And today we are launching under the theme Standards Revolutionizing Patient Care through Telemedicine. It's indeed, an exciting time for Jamaica, an exciting time for medicine development and technology coming together. As was said before, I'm Cecilia Johnson-Rowe, Senior Standards Development Officer. I'd just like you to know that I'll be doing the main presentation, but I will be also joined later on when I've completed the presentation by the pioneer of telemedicine in Jamaica, our very own Professor Winston Davidson, who is also the chairman of the Medical Facilities Technical Committee. Now, just to give an overview of what the objectives of the presentation is this morning, firstly, we'd seek to establish why a standard was needed for telemedicine. Secondly, I will provide an outline of the national standards development process. My colleague, Mr. Slater, would have given just a tip of what we do, but I will be delving into what went into the development of this specific standard. And then I'll provide a brief overview of the standard itself. And finally, just to discuss some implementation processes that we could do to, encourage the use of the telemedicine standard. So why was there a need for a standard for telemedicine? We look at our external environment and we see the need for accessible and affordable healthcare services. We also are familiar, and I know I have a lot of doctors and nurses and persons from the medical profession who, work in our public healthcare system. And there's an increased burden on the public healthcare system. Also, the increased prevalence of infectious diseases. And Minister Dunn spoke to the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are even still presently experiencing. So there was a need to standardize practices and processes. All of this need led to the concept of telemedicine. Persons can stay in their rural community and access their doctor online. And so today we're here to help the medical professions use the telemedicine standard to standardize their practices. We speak about standardization. What is a standard? As stated by ISO IEC Guide 2, 1996, a standard is a document established by consensus, and this is very important. It is approved by a recognized body. In this case, it is the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, and it allows for common and repeated use. It is rules, guidelines, or characteristics for activities of their result aimed to achieve an optimum degree of order in a given context. In simple terms, a standard is an acceptable way of doing things. How do we go about developing standards? Our national standards development process is done in 6 stages. The first stage we have where a need is communicated to us here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. For those of us who are members of a technical committee, we'll be familiar with what we call the new work item proposal form. And that form is used by any stakeholder in the populous Jamaican population to submit to the Bureau a need that arises for standardization. That new work item proposal is then evaluated by the management of the standards development branch. And then where it is deemed important to the Jamaican context, a technical committee is established to address the concern. I want to stay here a little as it relates to a technical committee, because it's very important to the development of the standard. Now we have some principles that we operate under in standards development. And two of those I'd like to highlight for you are openness and inclusiveness, and that is what our technical committee provides. And so our technical committee membership should include representation from consumer groups, governmental organizations, academia, industry, private sector, and other non-governmental organizations. Now we move to the work of the Medical Facilities Technical Committee. Now the Medical Facilities Technical Committee was established. They had their first meeting in 2019, and the membership of the committee, as you can see, is vast from the medical professionals. So we have representatives from the Medical Association of Jamaica, from the Jamaica Dental Association, representative from the parent ministry, the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We have representation from JANOC, who provides accreditation. We have the University of the West Indies. We have the University of Technology. We have the Pharmacy Council. So we have a wide array of representation on the Medical Facilities Technical Committee. Now, the Medical Facilities Technical Committee, chaired by our very own Professor Davidson, was responsible for the development of the telemedicine standard. And just to give you a little overview of the structure of the Medical Facilities Technical Committee, the committee had working groups, and there was the telemedicine subcommittee that even had its own chairman. Prof. Davidson chaired that committee as well, along with technical secretary Ambassador Dr. Parson, who is also present and will give some feedback later on the program. So we had the structure, the telemedicine subcommittee, and they were responsible for drafting the standard. The Medical Facilities Technical Committee had the responsibility of ratifying the document before a draft was given to the public for review. So as was said before, the telemedicine subcommittee would have done the groundwork of drafting the standard, which was then ratified based on the reporting relationship by the Medical Facilities Technical Committee. The committee was responsible for drafting deliberations about the technical content of the document. Once that was completed, a committee draft was then submitted to us here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, and that would have been edited, and then the standard would have been issued to the public for a period of 60 days for persons within the public and the medical professions and all the different persons that would interact with the standard to read the standard and provide their comments and feedback recommendation. So that comment period went on from the 14th of January 2022 to the 14th of March 2022. Now, even though we had that 60 days period, the consultation process went on even longer, because what we were trying to do is to ensure that everyone was included, everyone was able to provide feedback, because the matter of consensus for us is very important, because really standards should be developed based on consensus. Now, we had special groups that we had meetings with. We had special meetings with the Jamaica Veterinary Medical Association and also the Nursing Council. Now, just as I am about to move now into the standard, the Jamaican specification for telemedicine, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the content of the standard itself, just to take you to the requirements, where we have a scope. There is terms and definitions. We have requirements for telemedicine application. We have the selection of technology and the mode of communication. It also speaks to specific requirements for telemedicine, the framework for telemedicine, and the guidelines for technology platforms enabling telemedicine. And there are also some informative annex as well. Now, speaking to the scope of the standard covers provider-patient relationship. It covers issues of liability and negligence. It speaks to evaluation, management, and treatment. It also speaks to consent and continuity of care. It speaks to referral for emergency services. It speaks to medical records. It speaks to privacy and security of patient record and the exchange of information. It speaks to prescription and reimbursement. It also speaks to health education and counseling. What is not covered in the standard? We do not cover hardware, software, and building infrastructure to be used for telemedicine. Also, we do not cover in the standard information management system. And finally, not covered by the standard is digital technology used to conduct surgical or invasive procedures remotely. So by definition that was provided in the standard, telemedicine is the delivery of health and medical care services by a designated provider using information and communication technologies for diagnosis, treatment, disease prevention and injuries, research and evaluation, and health education or counseling. Moving to the general requirements that are listed in clause 3, and it's one of the shortest clauses in the standard, where it speaks to what the provider shall do. The provider shall uphold the same professional and ethical practices as applicable to traditional in-person care when using telemedicine. So all the ethical guidelines that are stipulated by the different councils for medical professions must be transferred when the provider is also providing teleconsultation. And secondly, the provider is encouraged as well to participate in training to enable his or her competencies in the practice of telemedicine. Clause 4 speaks to requirements for telemedicine application. I wanted to highlight firstly, the transfer of patient information. The standard speaks to it being transferred in real time, in consultation with the patient, the provider dialoguing with the patient, receiving information. It also allows for additional information to be sent asynchronously. So like blood work, radiology, and so on, but primary information must be gathered in real time. The clause also speaks to the protection of patient information. Using information technology, the matter of data protection is a huge subject matter. And so the provider of telemedicine must consider these risks that are associated with the provision of telemedicine and medical care online, because you will be receiving patients' information and the medical provider has a responsibility to protect the rights of the patient. Clause 5 speaks to the different selection of technology and the mode of communication that can be utilized in the delivery of telemedicine services. You can be using video, you can be messaging, you can use voice call, all that might be connected to the cloud as well. And this is also why, the confidentiality and the privacy of patient information also is very important. We also had in Annex A, and to help providers and persons interested in entering into telemedicine, the business of telemedicine as well. Annex A provides, the different advantages and disadvantages that are related to the different mode of communication that is applied in the practice of telemedicine. Now, just to delve in a little deeper at clause 6, it speaks to the specific requirements for telemedicine. And the following 7 elements shall be considered before engaging in telemedicine consultation. Now, it is the context of the situation, and the provider in the standard, it speaks to the provider using his or her discretion to decide whether or not the situation, the context that presents itself before you, if telemedicine is the appropriate answer for the patient situation. Also, it speaks to the identification of the provider and the patient. The provider must know who the patient is, as well as the patient must also know who the provider is. So no one can join a telemedicine platform or a consultation and is unaware of who the next person is or the other party on the other side of whether it's a video call or a telephone call. So it cannot be anonymous. Both provider and patient identity must be stated and clear. We spoke about mode of communication already, so I would not need to go into that. Fourthly, we speak to consent. Now, consent is required for all telemedicine consultations where the patient initiates, and this is stated in the standard, where the patient initiates a telemedicine consultation, then consent is implied. However, in another situation, the provider has the responsibility of having the patient explicitly state that he or her is consenting to the telemedicine consultation. Also, it speaks to the type of consultation, whether it's a first consult or a follow-up consult. The different kind of treatment for a follow-up consult, you'd have already had to visit the provider previously in an in-person consultation, and most times it's for the same condition that you are seeking the telemedicine consultation for. Patient evaluation, we speak to the gathering of information about the patient condition to determine if telemedicine consultation is appropriate. And finally, it speaks to the management of the patient. You can also seek to, so instead of diagnosis and treatment or referral and prescription, you can also provide health education and counseling to the patient via a telemedicine consultation. Clause 7, it speaks to the framework for telemedicine, and telemedicine may be initiated in 5 possible scenarios. It can be the patient going directly to the provider. It can be a caregiver to the provider. It can be a healthcare worker to the provider, or provider to provider, or specialist, or authorized person on site to provider. I want to just spend a minute here to just pull out on the caregiver to provider. Now, the caregiver can work in 2 possible settings. The caregiver can have the patient in his or her presence when dialoguing with the provider to get the patient consent, because remember, consent is very important to the practice of telemedicine. There's also another scenario where the patient gives a written authorization to the caregiver for that person to act on his or her behalf with the provider. There's also another scenario as well where the patient may be a minor. The caregiver can be a parent or a guardian acting on the behalf of the minor where the jurisdiction allows, or in a situation where the patient is incapacitated, then the caregiver would have to work on his or her behalf. Now, the matter of the healthcare worker practicing telemedicine through a provider. The healthcare worker can be as a health center, speaking to a provider at a higher division to gain insight on patient condition. Also, the healthcare worker cannot provide any sole care to a patient via telemedicine. He or she must be instructed by the provider. Finally, in clause 8 of the standard, which speaks to the guidelines for the technology platforms enabling telemedicine. Now, technological platforms shall firstly conduct their due diligence to ensure that providers are registered and listed with their different councils. So this is the responsibility of the platform, the technology platform provider, that he or she, the company, whomever, has to ensure that the provider is registered, that there is no falsification of information, no one acting as though he or she is a medical provider. So all of that information, there needs to be close dialogue with the technology provider, with the different councils, the different associations, to get a list, or a list that states that these medical practitioners are fully registered and are practicing providers. Also, the technology platform shall ensure, that artificial intelligence or machine learning persons like Siri and whomever that Google person is not speaking to the patient or acting in the role of a provider. So they're not allowed to counsel the patient or prescribe any medication to the patient. So these are some of the things that the standard covers. I have spoken on all 8 clauses. And so even in this time, Professor Davidson will come to provide even additional details and answer your question. But finally, I want to speak to how the standard can be used. And now, standards are innovative. And so persons may ask, why is the standard coming first before policies and regulation? But by characteristic, a standard drives innovation. And so the different governmental agencies, and whenever there is a new venture happening or a new business idea or a new industry forming, the government has the responsibility to install the required infrastructure. The standard forms a part of that infrastructure. So there's also, the standard can guide the development of policies and regulations, but practically through medical professionals practicing telemedicine. You can also use the standard to guide the development of your documented procedures. So your standard operating procedures, how you do what you do, your work instructions, how forming relationship between the different professionals. What will the doctor's relationship be with the pharmacist in the setting of telemedicine? Also, we speak to conformity assessment procedures, and these are procedures that will indicate whether or not the guidelines of the standards are being met. And also, you can seek to develop your service level agreements to ensure that there's an agreed way upon what service and how the service is to be provided. And also the different penalties that will come into play if the service is not provided as agreed upon in your SLAs. So these are some other ways that the standard can be used. It is a pretty exciting time for medicine and healthcare services, and the Bureau of Standards is here to support. And we are happy to have, worked with the Medical Facilities Technical Committee to have developed such a revolutionary standard. And so at this time, I will invite questions. Just before Mr. Lawrence takes over, I would like to indicate that Professor Davidson will answer your questions, as well as he will be, bringing a practical way of using telemedicine, because he has been involved with the development of the Doctor on Call. So he will come as well and speak a little bit about how it works and how the standard drives telemedicine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. I think we want to hold the question until Prof presents, just confirming that with Karen. One of the things I'm excited about is the implementation of our technology that we would have saw as children on Star Trek and those futuristic programs. To see Jamaica leading the charge is really exciting. And I know that our regional counterparts are looking on, we'll be working together. This technical committee was comprised of members not only in Jamaica, not only persons physically living here, but we had input outside of our island. So I'm very proud now to introduce the chairman of the technical committee. And just as a means of information, keep your questions coming in the chat. I'm seeing several questions. We'll be answering everyone. If you don't hear an answer first up, it's just a matter of time. We'll be answering all your questions. After Professor Davidson speak, we'll have an open question and answer session monitored by Mrs. Watson-Brown. And we have interviews on Spot On Rhythm Radio, hosted by Vernon Darby. So we are spanning the globe. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, we're on your TV, we're on your radio, we're on YouTube. Anywhere you are, we are there too. So telemedicine is coming alive. Professor Winston G. Mendes Davidson, CDJP, is the chairman of the Medical Facilities Committee of the Bureau of Standards in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. He was appointed by the Ministry of Health and Wellness at the recommendation of the Medical Council of Jamaica, the Medical Association of Jamaica, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness. He's a specialist in public health for over 50 years, longer than I've been alive. And he's a health technology for past 25 years. He was appointed Telemedicine Research Fellow in the School of Graduate Studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, and presently he is the retired head of the School of Public Health and Health Technology at the University of Technology, Jamaica. Professor Davidson is a research and development pioneer in telemedicine Jamaica and the Caribbean for the past 25 years. He received many awards, including the Telemedicine Innovation from the Scientific Research Council of Jamaica for his demonstration of the remote application of ECG in patient care 15 years ago. So now today he has been in this. He has produced the telemedicine platform Doctor on Call, the model of which ensures one, universal affordability and accessibility for all Jamaicans, and two, the implementation of the United Nations One Health Principle involving the participation of all registered health practitioners, including veterinary practitioners, working in unity on the same telemedicine platform. And three, he has documented new and innovative critical important ethical principles necessary for the practice of telemedicine by all practitioners. As chairman of the Board of Standards Telemedicine Subcommittee, he formulated and published the telemedicine technical framework, which formed the basis for the deliberation and development of the BSJ telemedicine industry standards. These standards were developed by a broad-based stakeholder group consisting of the leadership of all professional councils within the health sector, the Ministry of Health, the private sector, other telemedicine researchers and innovators, the general insurance industry, and an international technical representative, Ambassador Dr. Neil Parson. You will hear from him later in the launch. Dr. Parson gave valuable and necessary oversight to the process in keeping with World Trade Organization guidelines. The process was facilitated by the excellent technical staff of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. At the end of this process, as you heard Cecilia mention earlier, all stakeholders unanimously gave their acceptance and approval of both process and outcome of the final draft of the standards document. What is not written here, but I have to include, is that Professor Davidson is a former chairman of the Bureau of Standards Council. It is my privilege to introduce to you the chairman of the Medical Facilities Committee, Professor Winston Davidson.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure for me to be here, to be the person who is in the hot seat to answer all the questions that are going to be posed. Right. First of all, I'd just like to make a general remark. These standards that you are seeing Jamaica launch today are what we call industry standards. These are standards of the telemedicine industry. Now, I don't think there is any other country in the world that has developed standards like these. And it is therefore a proud moment for Jamaica to state categorically that it has gone through the process of developing these industry standards for telemedicine. And as a small country, we are doing so because we have a long history of the development of medical care, not only in this country, but throughout the Caribbean. As a matter of fact, it's over 300 year history from the plantation system to the present time. And so therefore, we proudly say that this particular standard, the industry standard, is being launched this morning. I make that point to emphasize the fact that each professional category continues to develop its therapeutic standards, the standards that they use to continue to improve the medical care and services in their respective area of specialization. And that's a different standard. That's the standard, those are therapeutic standards. Therapeutic standards are the purview of the particular respective profession. Now, what is in it for Jamaica? First of all, Jamaica, by the use of these standards, will first of all enjoy the fact that the Bureau of Standards has developed standards which will now integrate Jamaica's services, health services, within the global value chain. In other words, Jamaicans and their professions within the services delivered in medicine will be able now to be able to see patients within the global value chain. By that we mean globally. In other words, Jamaicans who deliver health services will not only be able to deliver the services to tourists who come to Jamaica, but with other conditions, they will be able to use this mechanism of telemedicine to see patients anywhere. And so therefore we can say that the Jamaican doctor, nurse, and all the others who are so highly trained, most of whom have migrated to the metropole over the years, will now be able to deliver medicine, even to the metropole, if they can agree with us, by the use of the standards that we have made. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the model that we have developed over the 25 years is a model which says every Jamaican every Jamaican must have universal access and that this access must be affordable to every Jamaican. And we think that the model that we have developed speaks to that paradigm in a fundamental way. And so therefore, the access to healthcare, which we have sought with primary healthcare, by the use of technology, will be able to give universal access to all, because of the fact that Jamaicans use the cell phone, which is the only facility that you need. Of course, you have the laptop, or you have the other instrument, the iPad. These are what you need to connect to your doctor, your nurse, or any other of the healthcare providers. And so therefore, this platform that we have developed the standards for gives protection to all citizens who wish to use it. Added to that, we are ensuring that the ethical standards are not only the same that we use to practice medicine for over 300 years in this country and the Caribbean, but the ethical standards are positively created to ensure that, notwithstanding that this is not a face-to-face medicine delivery system, but it's a virtual medical delivery system, even using the virtual medical delivery system, we are still ensuring that all patients are protected. Now, at this point, I'm going to invite the first question.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Davidson. I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Karen Watson-Brown, the manager for the Standards branch here at the Bureau of Standards, who's going to monitor the question and answer segment, and she will give instruction on how we proceed. Go ahead, Karen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Richard. So we're going to go now into the chat room. And the first question is, have standards been developed for e-prescribing? And if so, where can we find those standards?
Okay.
So, yeah, please go ahead, Professor. You're going to respond?
Yes, sure. First of all, this was part of the deliberations and the development of the standards. You will see in our standards document not only the principles underlying the question of e-prescribing, but also the methodology. And the methodology is this. When you see the doctor or the dentist, whomever, online, and he makes his diagnosis, he then prescribes writes his prescription, which is an automated system. This prescription goes directly to your cell phone. Or if you tell the provider that you wish it to be sent to a particular pharmacy, acting on your instructions, the prescription also can go straight to the pharmacy. But when the prescription is written, each prescription is accompanied by a QR code. This QR code is a unique code specifically written on your prescription, together with other requirements. And these requirements, of course, are specified in the standard. We have discussed it with the Pharmacy Council and Pharmacy Association, And every standard that you see there, every methodology that you see there has been cleared and reached as a matter of consensus by every member of the committee. So therefore, yes, we have found a methodology. And we have found this methodology because we use the basic features of the international guidelines concerning the issuance of prescriptions. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you, Professor. I'd want to add also that I don't know if the person was asking about whether or not the Bureau of Standards promulgated a standard for e-prescribing. So this is the first of its kind that we're doing in terms of a national standard that would have been promulgated by the BSJ. But of course, you do have private standards, which you would have addressed, Professor. All right, so I'll take some. You had another comment, sir, Professor Davidson?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what else one would say.
Okay.
Of course, so long as you remain within the guidelines of the standard, because the standard is not written in stone. If you have other methodologies that will protect the rights of the patient, while at the same time ensure that in fact the prescription remains the prescription of the patient and does not in fact create multiple prescriptions for persons to take elsewhere. For example, you can't use WhatsApp for prescriptions. You will violate the patient's rights. Because what do we see? We have had cases where persons' WhatsApp prescriptions were seen on Facebook. And this, in fact, therefore, has undermined the privacy of the patient. Now, if you look at the telemedicine guidelines or the telemedicine standards, we have been very, very rigorous in ensuring that the rights of the patient and their right to privacy and confidentiality is protected. And this, of course, I know I would spend about another hour and a half showing all the measures that we have taken to ensure the rights of the patients, especially in relation to the ethical practice of telemedicine, because there are many aspects of ethical challenges which this technology poses. But we have, in fact, looked at all these ethical challenges. We not only look at them theoretically, because over the 25 years, we have been able to test them and do patient user acceptance tests using other doctors, other areas, and that we have found in order to get the best practice. And so therefore, I would, first of all, tell anyone who wishes to challenge us, right? If you read the guidelines, if you read the standards, then we can also speak to every detail. But I'm not sure whether the public wants to undergo those details, but we can set up other seminars so that you would get the full text as to how we have been able to develop the best practice that there is in the world today.
Thank you. We have a few other questions.
Next question.
Can any registered doctor offer telemedicine in all its form? Secondly, will there need to be additional registration for this practice?
Okay. First of all, every telemedicine platform will, of course, has its own, what should I say, its own unique way of approach, its own business model. I can only speak to the business model that we have developed in Doctor On Call over the past 25 years. And the business model is simple, very, very simple. We ensure that there's no license to go on the doctor on call model. In other words, we want it to be universally affordable and accessible. So the provider does not have to have what you call an IT license to use it. What is necessary is that he has to have an up-to-date practice certification by his council. In other words, the council is the legal body responsible for the practice of dentistry, nursing, veterinary, public health, you know what. All the professions are governed by a council, by law. And that, of course, is part of the Act, which is part of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And so therefore, so long as he has a practicing certificate which is up to date, whether the person is nurse, doctor, dentist, what have you, they can practice as a provider of telemedicine on the Doctor on Call platform. And so therefore, that is the only requirement. The same requirement for the practice of medicine in Jamaica, or the practice of the medical profession or allied profession in Jamaica. That is responsible for that. That is the only condition for the practice, for the use of that platform. This is not to say that this is the only way. And as a matter of fact, everybody must be welcome. Let the patient choose whichever platform they wish. But we're not in the business of competition. We are in the business of cooperation. Because as a small country, we're not going to allow there to be a sort of dog-eat-dog system. We want to cooperate with where everybody works together in order to achieve the best outcome. Because when you start to have divisions amongst you, what in fact happens? The cost is going to increase, and the very advantage that you want to have this telemedicine platform, working together, is going to work to the disadvantage. And so far, there's unity among all practitioners. There's unity even among the ministries, and there's unity even among the political directorate. The same type of unity we had during the COVID. And let us keep that unity together as a country. And if we do that, the people will benefit. The people will get the best option. And the cost will be much, much lower than when you're fighting and everybody going in the opposite direction. So let's keep the unity. And what is coming out of this exercise from the Bureau is a total unity of all the professions and the political directorate in the ministries here. And that is the best, that is part of the best practice that as a country, this is what we see today. Have I answered the question?
Well, if you've not answered, if the person would like additional information,
yes,
or if you'd like to speak, I want to pause at this time to say to the participants that are on the platform that if you'd like to speak, you can just use your raise hand icon and I'll acknowledge you and an opportunity will be given to you to speak. All right, in the meantime, I will proceed with the other questions. Given the importance of consent in this practice, was there legal input into what constitutes consent and any documentation required?
Okay. Consent is part of the standard ethical practice of medicine or the health services. It is a natural part of the practice, and without this being taken into consideration as part of the ethical standards or the ethical requirements, you could never have a telemedicine standard. And so that is built into the standards that we have put in place. Now, the Bureau of Standards is not responsible for dealing with ethical practice of medicine. That jurisdiction comes under part of the Medical Act or the acts, which are part of the Ministry of Health and Well-being. These particular ethical standards, if they are violated, there's always a recourse by the public in dealing with these standards. Writing to the respective councils and having a hearing, and you go through a normal process of establishing what, in fact, has happened. And whoever is liable will, of course, have to be responsible for that liability. Naturally, there's liability insurance for the practitioner or the provider. And this liability insurance is also part of the process of resolving these issues. And we have a number of liability insurance companies, some from abroad and some local. And so therefore, the mechanism is already there for resolving questions of ethical practice or malpractice. And so therefore, this has been taken care of within the jurisdiction of the legal jurisdiction of the particular councils.
Thank you. How far has the government reached in implementing electronic health records? Well, this question I think was intended for Minister Dunn, but
okay. Now, the government naturally over the years has been challenged by questions of electronic medical records. And of course, the transition from a paper-based system to an electronic record system is a challenge. It will not take place overnight. Let me tell you that. Let me give you some data. First of all, over the past 5 or 10 years, we have engaged the professions in what we refer to as the practice of telemedicine. And I can tell you that about 85% of the doctors or the practitioners or the providers in Jamaica do not have electronic medical record system. And so therefore, what we have done in developing our platform, because you have to address the question, it's an important question, is that we have put in a dual system where the data that we collect from the patient through the virtual clinical encounter, we convert that data to a paper-based information, to a paper-based information, and print it to the doctor. The doctor then prints it and attaches it to his paper files and lock it up in his filing cabinet. What about the electronic? It's a dual system. So there is a system known as the API, Application Program Interface, where we integrate the electronic data that you get from the telemedicine. If you know the application program interface, you can integrate it in the patient electronic record system. Now, the transition is going to take time. Nobody must say criticize this group or criticize that group. Some doctors just don't like the electronic storage. They prefer to lock it up in their file and lock it up. They feel it is more, it is safer. it is not necessarily safer because we have technology, modern technology that can store in the cloud, etc. Right, and we can give a full lecture on that as to how it should be done. But you're going to have this dual system, but that must not stop you from accelerating the process and giving Jamaica the possibility of having universal, affordable access to healthcare, because it will be telemedicine will be the only platform where you can get this universal, affordable access where all Jamaicans can get it done because of the efficiencies, the savings, and the accessibility and the cost. I can tell you this, for example, that during the 25 years of research and development, the Association of General Practitioners and the Jamaica and the Caribbean College of Family Physicians, who worked with me, my colleagues, to do all the testing, the user acceptance tests over all of these years. When we launched the system, 94% of all the doctors said, listen to this carefully, that because the patient is not coming into the office, and because I can see these patients from anywhere, because telemedicine is anywhere care. If the patient is abroad, I can see him. If I'm abroad, the patient can see me. I am not in an office where I have to pay a light bill, water rate, and all that sort of thing. I am literally in global space, and I can see my patients from there. I will charge him, the patient, a half or less than half of the cost of seeing the patient in my office. The fact is that it works out much cheaper, and that is why it is going to be more affordable. And instead, when you have a hypertension or you have a chronic disease and you're going to the doctor every 3 years, you may be able to see the doctor every 3 or 6 months. And therefore be able to have better control and prevent the pandemic of chronic disease from accelerating and costing taxpayers money. And so therefore, there are benefits all over if we work together and if we see the advantages. Because a public health disaster, like a pandemic or an epidemic, will kill all your industries. And there's a direct relationship with public health and the economy. And so therefore, if you can prevent the disease, you'll improve the status of your human resource capacity, your increased production, and your economy will flourish. And so therefore, that is why we have kept the bottom line and why we do not charge the doctor to register on the platform. And we do not charge the patient to register on the platform. We don't have a registration fee. What we have is a situation where when the patient sees the doctor, the patient sees how much he has to pay. The patient pays the doctor. And if the doctor's fee is $100, 10 to 20% is paid on top of that for continuous research and development, and of course, the viability of the project. So it's $100, the doctors, the providers get all their money, and the 10 to 20% goes into the development of the particular project. If the government wants, it can pay the project that amount to continue the research so that they will benefit from the research. And so therefore that is, and also we can also build in some insurance facility. But that will take a different discussion, which we are hoping for with our insurance.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we leave it there. We have to pause the questions. However, I'm going to permit Dr. Roof, who has had her hand up for a while to speak. And then Richard, you can continue with the rest of the agenda. Dr. Roof, can you open your mic, please?
Okay, good morning, and thank you so much, Chair, Mr. Lawrence, Dr. Dunn, and Prof. Davidson. Good morning. So first, let me just personally thank the committee for this great work. We had a preview of this. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me
Yes,
clearly?
Dr. Roof, I'm hearing you, yes.
Okay, I'm not doing the camera thing because I got thrown off on another meeting earlier this morning using the camera, using Zoom, so I'm just being very cautious here. Right, so just saying thanks to the committee and to everyone involved, and just acknowledging we had a sneak preview of this by Prof. to a team here at the Ministry of Health and Wellness a few months ago, late last year. So it's really beautiful work. One key element, you know, barring technology and all of that, which we appreciate, certainly, one key element which resonated well with us this morning was about, you know, making sure that this part of digital transformation leaves no one behind. So it's in keeping with this digital transformation for public health principles, which we've learned from PAHO the last couple of years. Human rights, inclusive digital health. So that's really, really important. I've just got 3 questions really. And the first one is there a provision for telehealth in terms of nursing professionals in this standard? Registered nurses, nurse midwives, anybody else in terms of their own competence, in terms of the guidelines for them in terms of what they actually do in providing healthcare? That's one. Second thing, I have an interest in the compliance part. We know you have a standard, you must have a compliance approach, compliance methodology. So anything that can be said on the compliance assessment, is this a requirement? How does this work? Is it a self-assessment? Is it BSJ coming in to assess and all of that? And the third thing is a little trivial question, actually. Does the cost of 3,000, I think 3,300 or so, apply to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, or do we have access to the document through some special arrangement without actually paying? And this is not a cost question, obviously. So thank you so much. Over.
Thank you for your question. So in the interest of time, however, we will have to move along. The responses will be provided in the chat. Dr. Roof, you raised the matter of cost. We will communicate with you directly on that matter. And then there are a number of other questions. Responses will be provided in the chat room. So we're inviting you to monitor the chat. So the response will be provided there. But in the interest of time, we must move along. You mentioned again compliance. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. I was just responding.
I'm saying very well, thank you.
Okay, and as it relates to compliance, the standard is being promulgated by the BSJ as a voluntary standard. And then we are encouraging the relevant stakeholders to make a decision regarding how this standard will be used. But it is promulgated as a voluntary document, voluntary standard, and then the stakeholders are at liberty to use these standards in the development of their procedures, work instructions, guide policy, and also they can be referenced in laws and attendant regulations. Richard, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Prof will respond to the questions in due course, but in the interest of time, we're going to continue. I can see that the standard is generating a whole lot of interest, which is very good because the new norm is where we're heading and we all need to be aware of where we're going. The purpose of this launch is to let us all be aware of where we're heading, the components, and engage necessary key stakeholders. Questions that are posted in the chat, we will respond to them. We are not going to ignore any question. If you have not received it during the course of this session, then we will find ways to get it to you. We will have follow-up ways of engagement. Next on the program is something that I would refer to Tom Cruise, because this is Mission Impossible. We're going to be asking some of our key stakeholders and partners in the development of the standard to give 2-minute endorsement in the session, in the segment. We're looking at persons who are users of the telemedicine standards as it's being promulgated, those who are part of the promulgation and development, and leaders in the industry that will utilize or benefit from the promulgation of the standard. So in this order, I'm going to ask these persons to come on and to do the impossible, to answer either one or all of these questions in 2 minutes. I believe you can do it, right? This is your Mission Impossible. So either one or three of these questions. How will a telemedicine standard add value to advancing your profession? How do you intend to use the standard? And 3, in reference to the United Nations One Health policy, how has the telemedicine standard achieved the principle of One Health? I'm going to start with Dr. Irvin McKenzie, who is Chief Dental Officer in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. I'm going to ask Dr. McKenzie, you're first up on Mission Impossible, Part 4. Go ahead, Dr. McKenzie.
2 minutes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to say I'm truly proud to have been part of this team, which was hosted and facilitated and supported by the Bureau of Standards. I'm grateful for the guidance that the Bureau of Standards has provided and the sort of invaluable contributions that have been made by other members of the team, especially when you look on the fact that the team was so broad, because it represented academia, all the health professions, the regulatory bodies, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness. From my perspective, telemedicine has been a long time coming for Jamaica, and I'm happy for Karen to remind us that it's a voluntary standard. For the dental profession, we're a profession that has been defined as one that incorporates technology. We always seek to be on the cutting edge. And we see telemedicine in all its dimensions, from synchronous, asynchronous, mHealth, telehealth, as being all part of the past parts of enabling us to bring dentistry to our population. From my perspective, reaching remote locations in Jamaica during COVID-19 with dental health education and health promotion has been fundamental in sitting down and answering questions to the various needs that our clientele had where we couldn't even reach them was really significant. And I must say that it has become not just a useful adjunct in terms of our care delivery, but it can now be considered an important determinant of public health. And I must also congratulate Professor Winston Davidson, because he must be proud for having had 25 years in terms of this professional development and so on. So how does it advance the One Health? Dentistry is a subset of health. And we and our medical colleagues, nursing colleagues, pharmacy colleagues, and the allied health professionals, we don't practice in silos. We don't practice in isolation. Our practice is one of mutual respect and mutual development. And cyberspace telemedicine provides that common platform. It is next generation. They may say the 5th generation. Some may say it's the next or the final industrial type revolution that will shake the world in many ways. So telemedicine provides that opportunity for collaborative work, for research, for greater public health efforts, and for dentistry. It gives us a lot to smile about. My 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. McKenzie. I know that it is very hard to stick to the 2 minutes, but you did well. Next up, I'm gonna invite the technical secretary for the telemedicine subcommittee of the Medical Facilities Technical Committee, Ambassador Dr. Neil Parson, who is Senior Advisor at Dentons, have a focus on the Caribbean region, and he's also Chairman of the Board of the Global Alliance for Surgical Obstetrics, Trauma and Anesthetic Care, the G4 Alliance based in Chicago. Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see me or hear me.
Seeing and hearing you loud and clear.
Awesome. First of all, thank you very much, BSG, for hosting this, and special good morning to all the participants. Dr. Davidson, always a pleasure, and thank you for leading the charge on this. I had the pleasure of chairing this technical committee. It was a privilege to work with so many educated, experientially gifted Jamaicans during the time. Mr. Moderator, with respect, I actually don't want to answer your questions if you don't mind, because I think a lot of the speakers after me will do justice to the questions. But rather, I wanted to share my perspectives on what Jamaica has just unlocked. I myself have my own telehealth company here in the United States. I'm speaking to you from Washington, D.C. And what you have just unlocked there in Jamaica sets the tone for the rest of the Caribbean, I believe. Congratulations to the BSG on taking the lead in coming up with these standards. And I am hoping that a lot of people are asking a very relevant question. It's voluntary, but the next step naturally in taking this forward is to complete the ecosystem, complete that value chain by taking these regulations and having it legislated at some level of the parliament. So it becomes a guiding principle to take this new era of the practice of medicine going, into the future. Harvard did a study a few years ago, and they made a very bold statement. And the statement was that in a few years, less than 10 years, the idea of a doctor's office will seem quaint. What does that mean? It means we're not getting away from the idea of a physical office, but a lot of the delivery of medicine across the board is going to be digitalized and virtualized. And we are now entering the fourth industrial revolution, and that this is indicative of where the industry is heading. I also want to kind of make the point here, we know of the convenience of the platform and so on, but what you have also just unlocked in Jamaica is a path to economic prosperity. Because of digitalization, it is going to stimulate a lot more innovation in healthcare. There's a company in Los Angeles right now that came up with something called a butterfly. It's big like this. That one device is an X-ray, an ultrasound, an MRI, and a CAT scan in one device that fits into your pocket. Understand that APIing, as Prof said, and interfacing with a digital healthcare platform, what it will mean for the practice of medicine. Aside from economic prosperity, indirectly you have opened the door to lowering costs, transaction costs for the patient. Over 800 million people globally spend about 10% of their salary on healthcare services. And every second, 3 people are pushed into poverty globally because of healthcare costs. The idea of using technology to lower these costs opens an opportunity for bringing people out of poverty. And let's see it for what it is. It's a great future. We have seen during the COVID pandemic what we call COVID-induced migration. Because of COVID, economies collapsed, people began to migrate into greener pastures, so-called. So it becomes a national security issue. Using technology to buffer for the national security interests of Jamaica, believe it or not, this is what you have just unlocked. And I will also want you to see for what it is. Jamaica is gifted. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. The Caribbean region as a whole is gifted with extremely talented people. Opening up digital healthcare in the way we have just opened it up opens an opportunity for young, bright, ICT gifted, young entrepreneurs to open source this technology and take it forward. Medicine is evolving, technology is evolving, and this document will also evolve. It has to go with the time. This is not a static document. It's an organic document that must keep up with the time. And I'm hoping that this document becomes the benchmark, the baseline for others in the CARICOM region to follow. but I am also hoping that it is legislated and it's treated for what it is, an organic document that guides and subsequently helps to regulate the fourth industrial revolution of healthcare. This is not new. Years ago, they used to use crows and hieroglyphic smoke signals to warn other towns of sicknesses. This is simply using technology to communicate in a certain way to our patients and our stakeholders. And we are in the time, and congratulations, Jamaica, for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for endorsing and also working and leading the process to the point that we are at now. Next up is Dr. Sonia Richards Malcolm, who is chairperson of the Council of Professions Allied to Medicine and also associate professor and vice dean at the University of Technology, Jamaica. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone, or I think it's afternoon, it's after 12. On behalf of the Council of Professions Supplementary to Medicine, the JS 359-2022 Jamaica Standard Specification for Telemedicine is timely. This innovative technology or disruptive innovation opens the door for direct patient and healthcare provider control. On behalf of all registered supplementary medical practitioners, these standards will enable us to know our patients more, improve our customer service, turnaround time, and accuracy. This standard not only allows patients to get timely preventive treatment, but to assist those patients who require long-term health care. We intend to use this standard to be more efficient, effective, organized, and available, and offer more customized clinical services and networking to exchange medical data in real time for proper patient evaluation. While it's a key component of convenience for all stakeholders, it concurrently improves safety and lowers risk for all. This standard will be our benchmark to serve our patients, especially the elderly, and those patients in remote areas where healthcare are both scarce and unavailable. We are mindful of the required sufficient hardware and software security that must be in place to not only ensure accurate data and medical history, but to maintain our patients' trust, privacy, and confidentiality, and in return, their trust and confidence in the local healthcare system. This telemedicine standard has achieved the principle of the One Health policy proffered by the United Nations through the required collaborative, multisectoral, and transdisciplinary approach that is on display here today. Finally, we're working at all levels, nationally, regionally, and globally, with the main goal of achieving optimal health outcomes and recognize the interconnection between people, animal, plants, and our shared environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richards Malcolm. I see that the mission impossible is not so impossible. Let us see how we can go on with the chairman of the Jamaica Veterinary Board, Dr. Clover Mattox.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to congratulate the Bureau of Standards and Professor Davidson on the remarkable achievements that the Bureau of Standards has put on today. The Jamaica Veterinary Board is the regulatory arm of the Ministry of Agriculture, which is responsible for the regulation of veterinary medicine in Jamaica through the registration of veterinarians and the enrollment of animal health assistants. The Jamaica Veterinary Board is the only arm of the medicine that is not under the supervision of the Ministry of Health, and therefore we would love to thank you for the inclusive approach that you have taken to have us a part of the One Health initiative towards gaining standard for this important health industry. From a regulatory standpoint, the standards will be able to assist us in guidelines, in helping us to, in regulation at this time, since we are now embarking on upgrading or amending the Jamaica Veterinary Act of Jamaica. We also see this standard helping us in reducing the likelihood of illegal practices in Jamaica, since it will have greater accessibility to veterinary care. Access to information is one of those aspects that it will also help the veterinary board with, and therefore we will be able to improve our standards as we go along. The veterinary board would also love to collaborate with the medical professionals in ensuring that we have a healthy population, healthy environment, and healthy system. As we know, food is a part of the medicine that we actually have. How will this initiative help us with regards to the One Health approach? The One Health approach is that all professionals should be included in creating linkages between each other, in exchanging information that will prove importance to not just the healthcare system, but also the population on the whole. We are happy and very encouraged that this will also help us to create initiatives that will endorse lots and lots of experiments and lots and lots of emerging professionals through this particular initiative. Thank you so much for the involvement. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mattox. And we are appreciative for the input from the Jamaica Veterinary Board. Next up on this mission is the chairman of the Medical Council of Jamaica, Dr. Kenneth Vaughan. Dr. Vaughan.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me to speak here. Now, as telemedicine is not officially in Jamaica at the moment, we do not have any information locally in terms of the advancing of the medical profession as regards telemedicine. However, when we look at the researches that have been done in the United States, it has been shown that telemedicine has produced better long-term management and patient satisfaction. It saves time, it has saved lives, and it has saved money on the part of patients and physicians as well. Hopefully, with the passage of time and the existence of telemedicine locally, we can show the same results, as the primary goal of telemedicine is to enhance overall patient outcome by improving their access to care. And this would enhance the professionalism of physicians. As it regards to the intended use of standards, the same standard of professional integrity for patient care and for patient confidentiality are required for telemedicine. physicians who set up telemedicine will need to have a secure internet connection. And if they are making video platforms and technology support, well, they need to ensure that the patient's confidentiality is adequately secure. And as mentioned earlier, physicians in their training for telemedicine need to understand and appreciate that certain types of illnesses and problems require face-to-face physical assessment and cannot be diagnosed through telemedicine. As it relates to the United Nations One Health policy, the WHO has formed the One Health initiative to integrate the work of human health, animal health, and the environment. The WHO is also working with the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, the Environmental Program of the United Nations, and the Animal Health. And the whole objective is to ensure that the disease that animals have is not transmitted to human beings. And for research and emerging disease threats, we need to be made aware of this. That's why the development has been established, and we look for the prevention and outbreaks of zoonotic diseases, and these are diseases that are transmitted by animals, like the H5N1, avian influenza, MERS, Ebola, Zika, and Zika is particularly prominent in Jamaica, and certainly COVID-19. So we look forward to the association between the individuals who are involved in the treatment of animals and also for environmental interface. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vaughan, and thank you also for reminding us of the scope of the telemedicine, not just for human health, animal health, and the environment. We are going over to the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica and the Registrar, Dr. Eugene Brown-Myrie, will speak at this time. Dr. Brown-Myrie.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Let me correct, I am not the registrar for the Pharmacy Council. I am the chairman of the Pharmacy Council.
My apologies, thank you.
You're welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. And let me congratulate all the experts who have worked towards the development of these standards at the Bureau of Standard. Thanks for the opportunity for participating as well in the development of those standards. The Pharmacy Council of Jamaica regulates the practice of pharmacy through the registration and monitoring of all pharmacy professionals. Access to safe medicines and quality pharmaceutical care is a major challenge to healthcare internationally. And we have that as a problem here in Jamaica as well. And therefore, any innovation that helps to overcome these challenges is welcome by the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica and the pharmacists whom it regulates. The practice of pharmacy revolves largely around dispensing and the provision of a wide range of services that helps to improve the use of medicine, improve use and adherence to medicines, and also the management of chronic diseases. As such, we see the telemedicine standards as compatible with what we do for pharmacy. Telepharmacy is an area of telehealth, and we believe that telehealth will enhance the patient experiences, resulting in better patient care and therapeutic outcomes. It will also increase the access to pharmaceutical care services and therefore reduce potential dispensing errors. Overall, telepharmacy, part of telemedicine, will bring about reduced costs to the pharmaceutical services that our pharmacists provide. It will promote medication adherence, facilitates counseling remotely to our patients, and in so doing, it can improve transition of care to patients as they move from institutional care to home care. It also enhances collaboration, which I consider a very important aspect of telemedicine or telepharmacy. It enhances the collaboration with all the members of the health professional team, and in so doing, we can work together to ensure that the patient is achieving the desired outcomes that we anticipate. I see telemedicine as one way of facilitating the incorporation of e-prescribing, e-dispensing into our practices. Currently, e-prescribing, e-dispensing has no legal acceptance or approval in Jamaica. However, we are working assiduously to see the implementation of all the regulations and policies and guidelines that will facilitate a smooth transition from our paper practice to one where telemedicine is in full operation. There are a number of pharmacy services that can be delivered through telepharmacy or telemedicine. We have medication therapy management, chronic disease management, medication reconciliation, and a large number of others, including the education and counseling of our patients. These are all facilitated or can be facilitated through telemedicine. And so we do welcome these standards and believe that they will find utility in the practice of pharmacy when all the regulations are in place, when all the policies that will guide the standards are in place for the practice of pharmacy. And so we see the use of telemedicine as applicable to the practice of pharmacy, and we are anticipating all the many ways in which we will be able to use it to provide a resource-efficient approach to providing pharmacy services. We hope to use these general standards to guide the development of standard operating procedures for the provision of our telepharmacy services as well. We also anticipate using it to remove some of the barriers to healthcare that have over the years caused increased costs and making healthcare unaffordable for a number of our patients. It will serve that purpose of reducing costs, as many have alluded to, and so we are committed to telemedicine, telepharmacy, when we have all the systems in place that will guide the efficient operations of such a practice. Yes, we agree that telemedicine, through the establishment of these standards to guide the processes of the delivery of health services to patients through collaborative care, will achieve the UN's goals or principles of One Health. We have to work together to make this happen, but we recognize that there are still some outstanding issues to be addressed, and we look forward to seeing those addressed through the standards that will be developed to deal with the practice of e-prescribing and e-dispensing here in Jamaica. Thank you all for this opportunity, and we do welcome the telemedicine standards to Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown Myrie, and also the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica. I look forward to a reduction in my pharmacy bill as a result of the telemedicine implementation across the country. Our final industry endorsement will be coming from Professor Jennifer Knight Madden, who is Professor of Pediatric Pulmonology and Clinical Research Sickle Cell Unit at the Caribbean Institute for Health Research at the University of the West Indies. This is a pre-recorded video, so we'll take that at this time.
Good morning. I'm Professor Jennifer Knight Madden from the Sickle Cell Unit at the Caribbean Institute for Health Research at the University of the West Indies. It was a real pleasure for me to be a part of writing the telemedicine standards as a part of the work of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica. I found it a fascinating experience because during COVID, we had to rely on telemedicine in caring for our patients. I look after people with sickle cell disease and asthma, both of whom were at high risk. And so we did the best that we could. But I've learned so much writing the standards that as we plan to move more and more into telemedicine, as we plan to update our electronic medical record system, what is in that standard is going to be very important to inform us on the way forward. I hope that the standards will be used very widely across the country and maybe even across the region, because it will redound to the benefit of our patients. Thank you.
Excellent. Wow. We are winding down with our launch. What is the next step? What's the way forward? To speak on the way forward, I'm going to invite our Director of the Standards Division here at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, Mrs. Julia Bonner Dewey. Mrs. Dewey has over 25 years in the field of standardization. In 2022, she was elected chair of the International Organization for Standardization Committee, ISO DEFCO, that's for developing countries, 120 developing countries. Previous to that, in 2017, she was elected to the 15-member Technical Management Board of ISO, the first female in the English-speaking Caribbean to be elected to these posts. So we are very happy to have her at the BSJ, and we invite her right now to speak to the way forward. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Lawrence. Good afternoon, everybody. It is now afternoon. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our Minister of State prior, Minister Norman Dunn, the presence of our Chairman of our Standards Council, Chairman Wilfred Bagaloo, our Executive Director, Dr. Velton Gooden, and all the distinguished guests who spoke today and who are on the platform otherwise to this interesting session. Now, we know that as the global space changes, as digitization and technology forces a change, whether we want it or not, we will have to be moving. And digitization has moved, technology is moving. COVID showed us that. And right now, telemedicine is one of the tools in the digital field that we can use to be a participant in this global space. And as Ambassador Neil Parsons said earlier, Jamaica is forging ahead. As per usual, we are pushing way above our weight class, and therefore we are in that space, and this is one tool to get into that space. So how do we move forward? Already there is a tacit agreement among the stakeholders here that this stock standard provides good guidance for the industry, and that is very important, because without the legal acts and regulations in place, the first step is always to use the standards as guidance for the industry. And I think we should be very happy about this because we don't always have to go legal earlier. So the standard will provide guidance for this burgeoning industry, and that will help to provide confidence and integrity to what is happening now. We do acknowledge that the legal framework is still developing. So we do acknowledge that there are this Pharmacy Act needs to be adjusted, and there are some new amendments to regulations that will come. And we do acknowledge also that we might have new standards, like I saw in the chat, somebody mentioned, who will monitor, what about these new platforms? How do we know they are working well? The potential is a new standard for that. So, but the standards right now we have, for example, the health informatics standards, the telemedicine standards, will be part of the framework, institutional framework, along with the 5 participating entities here today, mainly the dental group, dental facilities group, veterinary medicine services group. I don't want to name everybody and end up missing somebody here. The Medical Council of Jamaica and others will be part of the implementation process. And I encourage all of us to start implementing it for the public good. Use the standard as guidance, because that is the first step in ensuring that we get benefit. When problems occur, you register it, you document it and send it back to the committee, maybe to the Bureau of Standards. We'll always amend standards every 5 years at least, or if something more important comes, standards are amended every few years. So therefore, we'll be amending the standard. I think somebody spoke about this is the first step and it's organic. We'll use it, we'll choose the standards and amend the new documents as we go along. So I just want to say to that, the standards can be used as policy to develop policy, to support policies, to provide amendments, underpinnings for regulations and laws, and also to ensure that the acts that come into place manage the process. So the way forward is to help to strengthen the industry, to ensure that there are laws that are there to support the regulatory monitoring, to provide new standards to support the industry, and to ensure that whatever standards we are using now are being implemented. The BSJ continues to provide the service to the country, because our mandate is to facilitate trade, protect the consumers, and ensure that we are trading in the global economy in a way that supports our process forward. So this telemedicine standard, as I said before, is technology. It is new. It is putting Jamaica in a space where we can now compete as a developing country, in a space where other parameters are very important. So we are to ensure that this can be used. We want to ensure that Bureau of Standards is here for you, and we will be part of the process of ensuring that the standards become part of regulations and laws. We have a technical regulation unit. The standards can be become technical regulations. The standards can be amended, be supporting new acts and new regulations, and the standards can be used for just to operationalize and support the industry that is happening. So I have to thank all persons here, and the BSJ remains ready to be a part of the process of ensuring that your grandchildren and my grandchildren will have a place to live where medical care will be easier to get. Thank you all.
Thank you, Julia. The journey continues, but we are on a path of transformation. Thank you all for staying on. We are almost finished, but there's another opportunity now for fielding questions. I'm going to throw back to Mrs. Watson-Brown to lead this final section of question and answer before we wrap up for today.
Okay, good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you, Richard. So we have quite a few questions. I'm going to try to sift through quickly to see how many we can get answered in the very short time we have. There was a question about whether or not the standard will be tabled in the Jamaican Parliament. If the person who asked the question would like to open their mic to just expound on that question, because from the standpoint of the BSJ, it was already promulgated as a Jamaican standard. As to whether or not it will be tabled in the Jamaican Parliament will be influenced by how the government intends to use it, or what can happen thereafter. But as it relates to what the Bureau of Standards would normally do, we have that legal authority to promulgate the document as a Jamaican standard. So it is a national standard. but I'm not sure exactly. Doctor, is it Dr. Wright? Would you like to open your mic and expound so we can ensure we have answered the question? Is it Dr. Wright? Not sure. No. You can open your mic, please, if you'd like to ask the question again or expound on what was asked. Not seeing a response. We'll have to move along. All right, but you can provide a response in the chat as well. Let's move on. How is data privacy and protection handled as part of the standard? Professor Davidson?
Yeah, sure. First of all, there are different levels. The first level is an understanding of the international requirements. At this level, it must be pointed out that all health data is referred to as sovereign data, which means that if you have a telemedicine platform, you can't store the data of Jamaicans in Britain or South Africa. It has to be stored in Jamaica. Why? Because people's health information is sovereign information. That's the first thing. And so whatever telemedicine platform you are going to use, that data generated from there must be under the jurisdiction of the Jamaican government, which has the responsibility to protect the information of every single Jamaican. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the process of getting the data from a patient, only the provider is the sole repository of that patient. In other words, the same conditions that you have when you go into a doctor's office, your doctor's office, and you lock the door, and you and the doctor deliberate, and you tell the doctor all the confidential, and he has the responsibility to ensure that that information is locked up, and only you will have the right of access. That similar situation has to take place on the telemedicine platform. And that is also part of the standards, international standards, right? Because let's face facts. The only way that you are going to feel comfortable and confident that you are in a situation of privacy, which is your human right, is when you have these standards put in place to protect you. Yes. Have I answered the question?
Okay.
I want to take as many, so I don't want to really elaborate and get technical.
Yes, because we do have limited time. Somebody asked a question about how will the practice of telemedicine be monitored for the adherence to the standards? Well, just as a reminder, it is promulgated as a voluntary standard. The various stakeholders are encouraged to use the standard however you see fit. So, for example, a particular sector or a group of professionals, medical professionals, could decide that this is what we're going to use, and you work out the finer details regarding how the party could show that they are in compliance with the standard. One thing I must say is that at BSJ, we do have a lot of experience regarding the implementation of quality systems. And so there's a basic structure or format as to how you'd set the system up. If you need some assistance in that regard, we'll be happy to provide it. We have a client services program where we provide technical advice to various stakeholders regarding the usage and the application of standards. So we'll be happy to provide some assistance. We also have the Quality Institute, which could provide some training for you if you need it regarding how you establish a quality system. Because at the end of the day, regardless of the discipline, the quality system applies to all of that. So we stand ready. Richard, I don't think I have any more time for any more questions. I will again post my email address in the chat so that once you send me an email, then I'll ensure that a response is provided to your question. Richard, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Davidson. Thank you very much, Karen. There are questions in the chat that we will still try to address outside of this launch because of the limited time that we have. Remember that this recording will be on the Bureau of Standards YouTube channel. So you can go to our YouTube channel and you can get access 24/7 to the recording of today's session. You can also reach out to us through info@bsj.org.jm for any additional information that you need. info@bsj.org.jm. I'm going to invite Miss April Farrell, Standards Development Officer at the Bureau of Standards Jamaica, to move the vote of thanks at this moment. April.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to actually be able to provide you. We want to stay at this time. We want to thank all of you for actually being able to come on this platform and actually learn a lot, especially as it relates to telemedicine. I'd also like to say at this time, special thank you to our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Lawrence. Very, very good and a well done job in terms of leading this entire process through today. We also like to say thank you to Dr. Belton Gooden, our Executive Director at BSJ, our Chairman of the Standards Council, Mr. Wilfred Bagaloo, and also the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State, coming from Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. We also like to say a special thank you to our presenters who really were able to capture and deliver the information as it relates to what Bureau offers and its services, as well as in terms of the work that is done in terms of the telemedicine committee. I also would like to say thank you to the telemedicine working group, the medical facilities technical committee, and also the telemedicine subcommittee, who really took the time to put together a very fruitful document for all of us to benefit from. Also, special mention goes out to our media coverage, especially those from Flow, Digital Play, Ready TV, nationwide. We really thank you all for making this possible for us, especially being able to send all those greetings out and make sure that the word is spread about the telemedicine standard. Also like to take the time to say thank you to persons who would have really taken the time, especially those who would have given their remarks. Dr. Irving McKenzie from the Chief Dental Office, Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Sonia Richards Malcolm, Council of Professional Aligned to Medicine, UTEC, Dr. Clover Mattox, Chairman of Jamaica Veterinary Board, Dr. Richard Fawn, Chairman of the Medical Council of Jamaica, Dr. Eugene Brown-Myrie, Chairman of the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica, Professor Knight Madden, who represented the sickle cell unit for the Caribbean Institute for Health Institute Research, University of the West Indies, and Dr. Neil Parson, the Technical Secretary leading the Telemedicine Subcommittee. We thank all of you. We also want to thank all our participants and our BSG crew for actually making this possible. So thank you all for coming out and being a part of this launch today. And we hope that it was fruitful and you all really did enjoy a lot and get a lot out of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, April. And just to add to April's vote of thanks, our special big up to Business Access TV, who provided live streaming of this standards launch today. We appreciate the partnership. What is left for me to do is to remind you that the journey continues. The Bureau of Standards is here, making standards work for you. Whatever you want us to do, contact us. We can have a discussion. We enjoy sharing the platform today, and we look forward to further engagement as we move forward as a country. Have a wonderful day. God bless you.